Today. Today we're going to be going through the 7 keys to successful influencer marketing. I'm not by myself though. Carly, why don't you say what's up to everybody here?
Hello guys. How are you?
Carly is the head of accounts here at Blue Light Media, and she has spearheaded our influencer marketing campaigns and absolutely crushed it for the brands that we work with. My name is Mikhail, president and co-founder, and I help a lot with strategy, and I wanted to help host this with Carly. So we'll be going back and forth on the 7 keys to successful influencer marketing today. Now, before we get started into anything, into the actual strategies and what the keys are, what we wanted to talk about first is why would you even work with influencers in the first place, right? So there's a ton of reasons that we like working with influencers. And one of the biggest reasons is it obviously helps drive awareness and reach new audience. But when an influencer is creating content for a specific brand, right, it helps improve the social proof, which is like just essentially word of mouth, showing some advocacy, and that the brand is actually something one that audiences can trust. And so they take that as a trusted testimonial when it's coming from an influencer that they follow. And the biggest thing, obviously, is driving sales, right? So we've actually had a lot of success in driving sales for our influencers. So far, with all the campaigns that we've run, we've seen an average across all campaigns of 3.3x ROI, meaning return on investment, and that's with micro-influencers alone. And in some cases, our micro-influencers produce up to 9 times return on investment. So it's been an incredibly great strategy for us. And I love that we have, Weezy here. So let's start getting into the first key to a successful influencer marketing campaign. Carly, why don't you talk a little bit about making the perfect influencer kit?
Sure. So the reason that we recommend brands create the perfect influencer kit is obviously to create that full experience for the influencer. It also creates advocacy and excites the influencer to do the post. I'm sure you guys have seen unboxings on influencers' Instagram stories or on their IGTVs. So this is essentially that.
Can you talk about some of the promotional items that you might want to include inside of the kit?
Yeah, sure. So in our past campaigns, it kind of depends whether or not you're doing an evergreen campaign, so just a standard campaign throughout the whole year, or if you're looking to do a seasonal one. So for example, one of our clients, we did a travel campaign, and it was all the essentials that you would need when traveling to vacation in the summer. So a couple items that we included were the TSA approved clear bags that you can travel with the liquids. We included the portable chargers, portable chargers that you can use on the plane. We included a book so you're not bored on the plane. Pretty much items that an influencer would find valuable and ultimately not end up in the trash.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that using using items that coincide with the actual campaign, like the travel kit, like you were talking about. We had a product where it was like a sleepy campaign, and we provided like a sleep mask, a branded sleep mask. So that was really important and really cool, actually. And actually, that sleep mask is in the top right-hand corner here for our partner, Wing CBD. Now, the thing is, you want to choose the right influencers, and that's the second key to a successful influencer campaign. One thing that we found in the past is certain brands, let's say it's a female-focused brand, will automatically choose a female with hundreds of thousands of followers. But the problem is they weren't diving into the engagement and who the audience actually was. So a female-focused product took a female influencer, but that audience was 80 to 90% male. So there's not a lot of connection between that influencer and the actual brand. So a couple things that we like to look at is the engagement rate of that influencer. Are they getting genuine comments? Are people actually interacting with the caption itself? Does it look authentic? Does it feel authentic? And is the influencer actually commenting back? Because we want to see that the influencers also engage with their audience as much as their audiences engage with them. We want to check out their followers, obviously, and we're not just talking about the number of followers, because as we dive deeper into the campaigns, it actually turns out that the number of followers isn't as important as the quality of their followers. In addition to that, we'll also see how many are authentic, and we have a third-party tool that uses that. But if you don't have a third-party tool to help you find authentic followers and see if an influencer's audience is actually real, just go base it off the type of engagement they're getting, and go through their follower list. I think everybody kind of has a good idea of what fake accounts look like, but go through their follower list, check it out. But the number one thing is look in those comments, look at the likes, see who's liking their posts. Do those actually seem authentic? And again, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, the audience demographics are very important. Most influencers, or at least the good influencers, will have a business account for their profile, so you can actually see where their audience is coming from, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So we'll actually see where their audience is. We're also going to see what the age range is of the most engaged audience of that particular influencer, and how many are male, how many are female. So that's really important. One of the things that Carly checks out too is how many past partnerships have they had? Like, how many brand partnerships have they had in the past? Like, you never want to partner with an influencer who every other post has some sort of brand shout out, right? Because their audience ends up getting fatigued by this, and your conversion rate isn't going to be as strong as an influencer who maybe only does one every month or every 30 posts or whatever the case may be there. So look at how many partnerships they've done in the past, just to make sure that you're not partnering with somebody that is just slinging deals all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And then finally, check out the content of the influencers. One of the things that we look at our influencers as not only a way to drive awareness and sales, but we also look at them as one of the things that will fuel the creative process for a brand. So we want to make sure that the content that the influencer is actually creating fits the aesthetic of the brand, so that we can use that in campaigns in the future.
Cool. So the third metric the third key to success for a influencer campaign is to decide if you should use macro or micro influencers. So the way you know if you should use macro or micro is to first start with the campaign type. There's 3 campaign types that are the most popularly used when creating a campaign. The first one is brand awareness. And the goal for this is usually you want to create buzz around your new product, or maybe you just had launched. So the way you're going to measure the success of a brand awareness campaign is going to be through reach, so unique people who see the post, and impressions, how many times the post is seen. And we typically like to work with micro influencers for our campaigns. However, brand awareness campaigns are going to be the exception, because if you think about it, you want to work with macro influencers because they have more followers, which means that they'll reach more people. The second type of campaign is a conversions campaign, which is the main campaigns that we run here. And those are usually to increase online sales or signups through email. The way you're going to track conversion campaigns is going to be through personalized promo codes. So these can be created through your e-com platform, and trackable links through Google Analytics or UTM links. We typically like to work with micro to mid-tier influencers for conversion rates or for conversion campaigns, because these influencers are seen as experts in their space and usually have a more niche audience that they're interested in those specific topics that they're talking about. And then the third campaign is going to be engagement, which you are looking to increase your likes and your comments. And the way you're going to measure this type of campaign is through the engagement rate, which is likes plus comments divided by the reach. And again, you want to work with these micro to mid-tier influencers because they have that engaged and loyal audience over a macro influencer who might talk about multiple different topics in their posts. However, micro to mid-tier usually stick to 1 or 2.
What's the advantage of doing like an engagement campaign versus a conversion campaign?
It's really dependent on what your end goal is. So if you're really looking to increase your sales, you're going to want to stick with conversions campaign, because if you start to incorporate you want to increase engagement, but you really want conversions, that's where your measurements are going to kind of get confusing.
Cool. Sweet. And the fourth key to a successful Instagram or influencer campaign is making sure that we have a signed agreement. even in the cases when we're working with influencers strictly based off trade, we want to make sure that we are very clear as to what to or what we expect out of the partner that we're working with. So we'll make sure that they know when the campaign starts and ends. We'll outline the number of deliverables that they have. So that could be a video, it could be a number of Instagram stories, a particular type of post, so on and so forth. We'll also make sure that we outline the cancellation terms. So if they don't fulfill the deliverables or they're not posting on time, something like that, we're no longer going to be paying that influencer or compensating them for any sales. We also want to make sure that the influencer is taking care of any outside costs for production, right? So, for example, if they need to buy props, if they have to hire a photographer, whatever that process is, we try to make sure that we are not responsible for any of those fees, because that's really on the creator. The reason we chose that influencer is because of the type of content that they chose, so we expect that content's going to come out that way anyways. The other thing that we look at is the approval of the content. When we work with influencers, they are not allowed to post content without us actually approving that content first. And the reason that we do that is because we want to make sure that everything's on brand, that they're saying the right things, especially with some of our consumer packaged goods where the uses are actually very specific and the ingredients might be specific. So we want to make sure that everything's up to brand. Instagram and FTC regulations, we want to make sure that they're letting their audience know that it's an actual paid partnership, which Instagram makes pretty easy now. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the compensation terms are huge, right? As a rule of thumb, 50% up front, 50% at the end, right? So, and that kind of applies to any time you're working with a contract or anything like that. Especially if you're working with larger influencers, their fees might go up to like $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, whatever the case may be there. But it really doesn't matter. Like, make sure that you get the deposit down so that they will post, and let them know that they'll get paid out when the actual agreement is done. And of course, you guys, we will have an opportunity for Q&A at the end. So if you have more questions about any part of this, just hang tight and we'll make sure to answer any questions.
So the fifth key to success when creating an influencer campaign is going to be using your budget wisely. So there's a lot of gray area with influencer marketing, especially when it comes to pricing. However, there is an industry standard of influencers will typically charge $100 per 10,000 followers. There are other factors that play into this, which we'll get into on the next slide. However, this is a graph that we put together based off of what we've seen from past campaigns. Typically, when you're doing micro influencer campaigns, you're going to see about $100 to $500 per post. However, a lot of influencers, especially micro ones, are cool with product exchange for posts. So definitely push that first before a compensation. That's what I would recommend.
Perfect. And just because this table is here on how to pay an influencer or their average pricing, like we've worked with influencers that might fall within the 10, 25,000 range that we're pretty much trading on, or not even paying $500, but maybe $100 to $200, right?
Yeah, definitely ranges.
Yeah. So don't feel like you have to pay them this much right off the bat. Of course, look, they're people too. They need to make a living, but this is at least a frame of reference. You know, you don't want to be paying an influencer with 5,000 followers like $1,000 unless they're doing a lot of stuff for you.
Yeah.
Some other things that you should take into consideration with their fees as well is how often you can use their content. Some influencers might be pretty stringent on, how often or if you can use their content on your own platforms or in ad campaigns. Agency fees are a big one too, right? So some of the more mid-tier to macro influencers obviously will have agencies that actually represent them or a management team. So a lot of the reason we like to work with micro influencers is because, they typically don't have representation like that. So we know that we're not dealing with a middleman who's taking a cut, but that is something to look out for. And that's something that might skew the pricing. And of course, the length of the campaign is a big factor in the pricing. So even though a micro influencer might, only ask for $100, if you extrapolate that over the course of a couple months or even 6 months, if they're selling well, expect to pay a little bit more. But we're going to get a little bit into some of the compensation strategies next here on how to pay the influencers properly.
Cool. So like I mentioned before, trade and sponsorship for products is probably the first thing that you're going to want to offer and see if they're interested in. This is, again, basically just trading product for the posts. The next one is a trial period. Some brands don't like doing this, where you would send samples or a product to the influencer to try out first. However, I think it's super awesome when influencers ask for this, mainly because it really shows that they use the products that they post about, and they're real. They want to try it, and then they don't want to just push out products that they've never tried to their audiences. So they have their audiences back in this kind of way. And then the next one is commission or ambassador programs. This is when you want to turn those rockstar influencers who've gotten you sales, they've gotten you traffic to your website. These are the people that you want to turn into ambassadors, where you would create a commission structure so they would get a percentage of the sales that they make. And then kind of going off of that is a tiered approach, which is going to further motivate those influencers. So say they sell $1,000 in the first month, they get 10%, wow, 10% commission. And then say if they hit 2,000 sales in the next month, you'd give them 10 or 15% commission.
Right. So it goes up over time as they perform better and better. And one thing to take into consideration here is when you are dealing with any influencer, you're turning them into salespeople for you and content creators for you. So treat them well. You know what I mean? I know that it might seem like everybody's an influencer these days, but they're trying to make a living and they're really helping your brand. And we've gotten some great results from the people that we work with because we encourage our partners to treat their influencers really well. So the sixth key to a successful influencer campaign is optimizing all of your platforms for sales. So in my opinion, a big mistake that you can make is giving an influencer a product and telling them to just shout it out and hoping that sales go up. There are a couple things that you want in place. Obviously, you've all seen tracked codes, and I think that's pretty much standard now. So it'll say something like Jane 10 for 10% off, but make sure that they have that so you can start tracking things. And in addition to that, giving the extra discount for the influencer to offer their audience is going to help their audience purchase that product. In addition to that, you want to test campaigns that are product specific versus store-wide campaigns, right? So if you're launching a new, if you're not launching a new type of product for your brand or a new flavor or whatever the case may be, launch that flavor specifically. The more that you can actually hone in on a specific message and a specific product and a specific destination, the better your conversions are going to be, because you want to limit the amount of options that an audience has to make a purchase and make it super easy for them, right? One of the things that we've also found work, kind of piggybacking off that, is a dedicated landing page for a specific campaign. So that could be specific to the influencer if they're working really well for you, but more often than not, it's going to be a specific landing page for this new launch of a product, a flavor, or whatever that new campaign is, right? And let me be very clear that this differs than sending it to the product page. Product page typically don't have a lot of things that will continue to entice somebody to make a purchase on that page. So if you make a dedicated landing page, you can talk a little bit more about the promotion. You can include some testimonials, additional photos, videos, whatever it is to really sell that product. And that's going to help your conversion rates overall. The other thing that you can do to optimize for sales is actually run the ads through the influencer's accounts. So when you partner up with an influencer, you'll have typically with Instagram anyways, you can actually partner up with them and you can run your ads campaigns through their accounts. And now you're reaching more people through an audience that actually will trust that person. And a lot of times audiences will see that if a product is being promoted through the person or the influencer and not the brand, they'll actually resonate with that a little bit more, because again, it's that added social proof and it's that added advocacy, and they consider that a trusted testimonial. And then finally, as you're optimizing for sales, over time, you want to start removing influencers who aren't producing for the campaign, and you want to start pouring some gasoline on the ones that actually are. So this could be that tiered approach where the ones that are performing well, give them a higher compensation plan so that they're posting more, talking about it more, selling to their friends, whatever the case may be in that spot. Or you can also start bringing new influencers into your campaign as well too. But it's very important to start looking at how many products or how much or the results of the campaign overall, and remove those influencers that aren't performing well for you as you move further down the campaign.
Cool. The last key to success for a successful influencer campaign is going to be to know how to measure the success. That's a lot of success.
We love a lot of success here.
So on this slide are a couple formulas that you can take a look at when your campaign's coming to a close, and you're going to see, was it successful? How can we improve? And so on. So the first one is going to be the CPE, or cost per engagement. And these are typically going to be used for sales campaigns. We've seen that an average CPE for our campaigns and for industry is anywhere from 25 cents to 75 cents per post. And then to the right is going to be the formula you're going to use to calculate it. The middle one is going to be the CPC, or cost per click, and this is going to be for those the first one's for engagement campaign. I think I said sales. The middle one is going to be for your sales campaign, and this is going to be your total cost, which is going to include the cost of the products, the cost of the influencer kit, the cost of whatever the influencer's fee is, divided by the total clicks. And the last one is going to be the CPM, or cost per 1,000 impression, and this is going to be used for your awareness campaigns. The average cost for this is a little bit higher than the other ones, but for influencer industry, that's the average. It's pretty normal. So the CPM is 1,000 times the cost, same cost as the CPC divided by the impressions.
So take into consideration here too, guys, that as you're measuring these out, in a lot of cases, your CPM, CPC, or cost per engagement, CPE, might be a little bit more expensive than if you were running like a Facebook ads campaign or Google ads, whatever else you're measuring those type of metrics against. But take into consideration that these impressions are generally considered higher quality. So it's a more targeted audience, so on and so forth. So don't be afraid to don't be worried if your cost per 1,000 impressions, for example, goes up a little bit, because you have to assume that since it's going through this influencer, the impression is actually worth more than if you were just to run a Facebook ads campaign to a cold audience. Now, a little bit more about measuring the success here is, when you can start measuring it too. So one of the easiest ways, obviously, is using the branded content feature on Instagram or Facebook. That makes it super easy to access the influencers' metrics instead of sharing screenshots. So make sure that your influencer actually has a business account so you can actually do this. In addition to that, the best times to check it is at the 24-hour mark after a post. Then you want to check it 3 days after. Then you can check it a week after, and then again a month afterward. Because a lot of times posts will live a little bit longer on the platform. Audiences are going back through the entire feed just to check out certain posts. So you want to see how that performance improves or declines over time, and exactly like how long you should be working with a particular influencer. And then the last one is really basic. Just look at the general metrics, likes, comments, so on and so forth. But we're going to get a little bit deeper into the likes, comments, and reach here. And this is a screenshot of typical metrics within an influencer's account. And Carly will explain a little bit about this too.
Sure. So on the left is going to be your brand awareness campaign. This is just a basic screenshot of an Instagram post. And so what you're going to look at for brand awareness is you're going to look at the reach and the impressions. So to calculate the reach rate, you'll take the reach and divide it by the total followers they have. And then to calculate the impressions, like I mentioned before, you're going to calculate the CPM. So these are the two main sections of their analytics that you're going to want to take a look at. For engagement campaigns, of course, you're going to want to look at the likes and the comments, and then you're going to divide that by the post reach, and that's going to give you the engagement rate.
Yeah. And then obviously we want to measure sales, because reach and impressions and content is all great, but if we're not making money, then what's the point? So if you have, a really easy tool, if you don't have it already, is anything through Shopify. You can easily create coupon codes for your influencers, and obviously create, I don't know if it's obvious, but what I want to point out is make sure you have a unique code per influencer. What's the other one that we use? WooCommerce, or
this is an example of WooCommerce.
Yeah, this is actually an example of WooCommerce, but WooCommerce makes it really easy to track as well too. So these are actual screenshots from one of the influencers that we actually worked with, and as you can see here, between July 11th and August 7th, this influencer actually produced almost $2,000 worth of sales, and in a relatively short amount of time. Do you remember by any chance how much we actually paid this influencer?
It was product exchange.
Yeah, so this one was a product exchange. The only cost to work with this influencer, by the way, that wasn't planted. I thought we paid her a small amount.
No, yeah,
so
product exchange.
So this is rad, right? So the cost of the product is only $45. Add the influencer kit, maybe another $20 on top of that, right? So now we're working with this influencer for around $60, and over 3 months, it produced almost $2,000 worth of sales for our client. So, this shit actually works, and we're really excited about that. But again, check out the influencer posts in their analytics. Check out your WooCommerce and your Shopify, and make sure that you're tracking each one of those influencers too. And then the third thing that we actually didn't list out here was use a track link. So if you want to go to bit.ly.com, you can actually create unique tracked links as well too. And you can see how many times a link is actually being clicked on. And so when you look at that and you see like a high click rate, and let's say sales weren't great, but you see a high click rate, at that point that maybe it was the landing page that wasn't designed very well. On the other side of that, if you see a low click rate, that might be the influencer just isn't that great. So, as I mentioned, this shit actually works. For Wing CBD, this is one of our favorite brands to work with, because we have to launch them specifically through influencers, because we can't actually launch Facebook ad campaigns for ingestible CBD products. So in this case specifically, we were able to achieve over 3x return on agency and influencer fees through working with micro influencers and mid-tier influencers. In addition to that, we got amazing content out of that. So on the right here, Carly brilliantly put together a campaign brief to kind of outline what we wanted the content to look like. And we got photos like this one that was made by the influencer, and we're now able to use them on the actual brand's Instagram page and in their ad campaigns as well too. Another campaign that we ran was with Grit Cycle, and we actually turned their instructors into influencers. We were using their content in the ads, because if you go to gritcycle.com, you'll see that they actually have like very produced photos, and we were trying those out, and we got good results on the Facebook ads, but I thought, why not use the actual instructors' content, like the videos that some of the instructors make, the ones that look a little bit more grimy, or authentic rather, and turn those into ads. And once we did that, it actually improved the click-through rate by 300%, almost overnight. And then we went from getting about 1% return on ad spend through their Facebook ads to over four times return on ad spend in only a 90-day period. And that was by using the instructor's content on the ads, as opposed to using the overproduced content that the brand actually already had. So this stuff is really great. So we're going to get into Q&A in a second here. But before we get into Q&A, I just wanted to let you guys know that, one, we really, really appreciate the fact that you spent time this morning to hang out with us and learn a little bit about influencer marketing. Believe it or not, this is actually our first run at a webinar. We don't really do this stuff, but this was on our 2020 intentions. So by attending, you'll get 35% off of admission to the Academy. You just got to email me. You can click that link there, or it's mikhail@bluelight.media. And I'll give you a little bit more information on the Academy and see if you're a good fit for that. In addition to that, we're going to send everyone that attended the webinar this deck, and you'll be able to have some free resources here on, how to check if followers are authentic, money calculators, Instagram analytics, like this whole thing. So you'll actually have all of these free resources for you guys to use after this. None of that stuff is sponsored by us. Carly actually just did a bunch of research to make sure that we could provide as much value as possible to all you guys. But as we are wrapping this up, let's get a little bit into Q&A. There's my disgusting desktop. We don't have any questions yet. You can put it in the chat box, or you can put it in the little Q&A box, which is perfectly fine. Do I have to open this up? Nah, like I said, first time guys. But if you have any questions, we'll open it up for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes before we start getting some stuff in here, and we'll start answering these. I guess we can talk about some other things while you guys are thinking of all those amazing questions as well too. Is there anything that we missed with influencer marketing?
One thing that I would add is that we like to run campaigns with each influencer for at least 2 to 3 months. Try and stay away from one-off projects because we just don't really see the results from it. And the reason being is this influencer might post once on their account and their audience has never heard about the brand before, most likely. So they kind of just shrug it off as a promotion, and then not that like the influencer really actually uses the product. So when you do a 2 to 3 month campaign, you're touching that audience multiple times, and they start to get familiar with it, and they start to realize like, wow, this influencer actually uses this product. That's a big one, and that actually answered Kayla's question, which is great. How many times to use the same influencer? Keep in mind, I think the rule of marketing is that somebody needs to you need 7 touches to actually convert somebody into sales. So, combine that with Instagram stories. That might need to be a deeper touch, but at least 7 posts, I would say, would be good, right? And then Trevor asks, why is your desktop so disgusting? Just kidding. Trevor asks, do you recommend a certain type of brand? To be conscious of what platform they search for an influencer for? It depends on the type of content that you want out of it. So what I would say is, if you want video content, like a lot of times you can find those influencers on YouTube, for example. But I think the biggest place that we've seen a lot of success is on the Instagram, on the Instagram side. To be frank, like we haven't worked with a lot of YouTube influencers yet because they tend to be a lot more expensive. So Trevor, what I would say is this: it really depends on your budget. For YouTube influencers, imagine they're creating longer videos, the production's a little bit longer, so you're going to spend a little bit more. I think the micro influencer route through Instagram is really going to be your best bet. And what you want to understand too when selecting where your influencers are going to go, or which influencer or which platforms you want to promote on, understand what's the demographic of that actual platform. On Instagram, like influencers it's just generally accepted, and it makes it really easy to shop there. Now, if you're going to search for somebody on TikTok, that audience skews a little bit younger, and the influencer part of TikTok isn't as widely adopted yet, so you might not get as much movement there. But don't be afraid to repurpose content. Man, I can go down this weird thing. Don't be afraid to repurpose content either. Trevor also asks, have you guys implemented TikTok influencer for brand marketing? We tried to work with a TikTok influencer, but it was just way too expensive. Again, be conscious of the brand itself. Like, what type of audience is that brand actually going after? Do they live on TikTok? They'll definitely live on Instagram. So be conscious of that when you're launching it. But no, we have not really activated a TikTok influencer yet. Adam asks, how would you recommend that we identify local influencers for small businesses? No online sales, nothing to buy on a website. Or would you recommend the model you used for Grit, using the employee posts? Well, one easy way to do that, Adam, is actually just by searching location. So on Instagram in the Discover feed, you can actually search Huntington Beach, for example, and you can see the influencers that you can see people that are creating content there and who's actually tagging Huntington Beach. So you can search by location there. The other thing that I would really recommend for you is local
food bloggers that create they'll create these big photos of like certain products. And I think that's a really great way to go. And we actually use that for Wingnuts, which is a restaurant of ours. But the biggest thing, look at the location, where that's on Instagram, both the actual location thing and the hashtag, searching Huntington Beach, Orange County, OC food reviews, so on and so forth.
Also, too, just to touch on that, something else you can look up on Instagram are locations around you. So for Huntington Beach, you might look at the bungalow. A lot of Instagram influencers hang out there to take photos. So scroll through their feed, scroll through their tagged photos, go to other popular areas or restaurants or whatever it might be in the Huntington Beach or your local area as well. That's just another option.
Sure. So these were answered. And then Tyler asks, do you use programs like Izia to source influencers? So we actually use a program called Tagger Media. That's Tagger Media. To search for influencers. And what's great about Tagger is we're actually able to see what their audience resonates with. So we can see that an influencer's audience is interested in health and wellness. We can also see if they have authentic followers, see what their top performing content is. It's just so much faster than doing it manually on Instagram. However, it is $1,500 a month plus, so it is a little expensive, which kind of sucks. I'm sure there's other things out there, but we just fell in love with Tagger Media, so we decided to invest in that. But if you don't have the resources to get that platform, there's a couple ways that you can search for influencers. One of them would be, again, using the search function for hashtags and locations. That are relevant to your business. But in addition to that, check out some of your competitors' follower base. Check out your competitors' follower base and go through who's following them and who that competitor follows. And those might be good people to start reaching out to just via DM for influencers. And in fact, I believe 98% of our initial outreach to influencers is just via DM on that platform. We get the fastest response right there.
Yep.
Tyler asks, I live in the South, Trevor asks, I live in the South, small businesses are still relying on traditional marketing, billboard, print, TV, and are resistant to progressive marketing. Have you or anyone else on here struggled with this? And how did you approach the client to help them see value in progressive media? I mean, this isn't specific to, I guess this could be kind of specific to influencers. I think, honestly, it just depends. To be quite frank with you, Trevor, we still use print media for a couple of our clients. We actually run billboards too for our clients as well too. It's not the first thing that we go for, but if that works, then it works. I would say this: reach out to those publications, those billboard companies, and now expand. This is a crazy business consult now. Find a way to be able to design, flyers, find a way to be able to design billboards, and Canva makes this really easy if you have no graphic design skills, and design through there and do it. Because the fact of the matter is this: if there was a billboard outside of our restaurant, right on top of our restaurant that we work with, we would get that billboard because it's immediate impression. It's super specific to that area. And if it's working for them, then it's working for them. As a marketer and as an advertiser, you can't be, you have to be agnostic to the platform that you're actually going to work with, and just understand that you need to find out what works. But what I would say is this: if you're going to convince them on Facebook ads, it's a really easy sell, and just tell them that you can reach 1,000 people for every $7 that you spend, or get 7,000, impressions for every $7 that you spend. So, you times that by $100, $700, you're reaching crazy amounts of people. Whereas if you were to run a print ad or a billboard, it's going to be a lot more expensive. We are wrapping up on time here. We at 10:45. So the last questions coming in, let us know. Otherwise, we are super pumped that you took the time to be here today. We really appreciate it. We hope you found value in it. I would love if you could send us an email, or me specifically an email, to mikhail@bluelight.media, and let us know how we did. How did you like this? What could we have included? What could we have done better? The whole thing. I didn't do my hair today, so I didn't want to put us on video. So I apologize for that. But again, thank you so much for being here, guys. We're actually going to log off now. Thank you for the questions. Trevor, Adam, we appreciate it. Tyler, we appreciate it. Brittany, Sienna, and everybody else who attended here today. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you soon. How do I stop?